Y'all know what this is? Yo. Every time, yeah. We back like we never left, you know what I mean? Yup. Y'all need to make room. It's for the queen, let's get it. Yeah.
I never really talk about it.
Never.
I just keep it to myself, yeah. Ignoring every ounce about it, cause all it does is cause me hell, yeah. I refuse to be a slave, and baby, you're mistakes. I won't do that to myself ever again.
Never again.
My tears are closed for you. You know I don't wanna live a life thinking about you. So listen close, cause it's about you. Your lies, not mine. I'm reclaiming my time. All of the time I wasted on you. I'm moving on. I'm over you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of QTube with the Q Review. And today I am joined by the wonderful, I'm not sure how many people have heard of Melodic, but many of you need to know who Melodic is. So Melodic is a R&B, I would say pretty heavily into R&B, an R&B pop songstress, if you will, and we connected through a little partnership that we are having with Reverbnation. So Melodic's our first Reverbnation artist, and welcome to QTube, Melodic.
Yay! Thank you so much. It is definitely an honor to be here. You know?
As I flubbed it up on the way in, trying to explain the music that you make, it really is, I consider it traditional R&B for today's ears.
I would say that. It's definitely contemporary R&B, so still in the same vein. But I mean, you hit the nail on the head, R&B pop artists, you know. Some songs tend to be a little bit more poppy just by dynamics, you know, or the instrumental, but it's always rooted in R&B, definitely.
And when I say traditional, I think that for me, there's some old school sounds in there, especially, first of all, your voice, like, come on. It's so made for R&B. You've got that, it's like that velvety texture that works so well on R&B. But I do hear some of the old, maybe sounds of maybe old Aaliyah or Mary J. Blige. Those sounds, those kind of like those beats and those undertones.
I like those artists, so that works for me. Thank you.
So how long have you've been making music for a while? And this has been a lifelong career almost for you. But how did you get started?
I honestly didn't even know I could sing till I was like 11 or 12 years old. And then an old friend of mine who I'm still friends with, named Elle Berner, who then later, which I'm sure we'll get into, managed me. She actually found me. And, you know, she started working with me and kind of just making sure that I was developing my voice, listening to the right artists to learn how to stack vocals, sing in the studio properly. She really taught me how to sing in the studio properly too, which is really beneficial at a very early age. And then of course, be comfortable singing in front of people, going on stage and performing, going out to auditions, showing me a lot of the way that the business works, basically. But that's pretty much how it started. And ever since then, I have been just on go.
You're very fortunate to have somebody to help guide you through some of those.
Very.
Those can be treacherous. Those can be treacherous parts of the music industry.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they are. And I mean, I have to say a lot of people that would have heard of me, if any at all, would notice what I was before, you know, what I looked like before, I should say. I'm still the same person, still the same spirit, but you obviously, you know, I'm a transgender artist. I'm a transgender woman. So my outer appearance has changed, but, you know, she met me, you know, as this little boy, if you will. And, you know, she definitely taught me a lot of things. And as the years went on, we did lose contact. There was a point where we lost contact for at least, I believe, like 8 to 10 years. I can't really put a finger on it, but, and then we reconnected back in 2011. And then since then, I've known her since. We've been so close. And she's helped me with, I mean, everything. And now, if you fast forward to today, I've been 3 years in transition. And since then, I have been trying to make sure that my voice sounds good, because believe it or not, being on, HRTs, which is the hormone replacement therapy medicines, people will tell you it doesn't change your voice, but it actually does. So once you take that testosterone out your body, things do change, including the voice a little bit. So my singing voice, it got a little higher, if you will. And I had to really adapt to how I was going to sing and how I was going to perform. And now we're here today. So
well, that has to be, quite a testament to your work ethic, I guess, in a sense, in terms of training. That is something that most artists wouldn't have to encounter in their life, unless, at different times in their life, depending on what happens. But for you, because I like what I just said, the velvety tones of that R&B.
I know. You're sweet.
It's the alto part, but it's such a smoothness to your voice, that when you, and that's what I mean by traditional R&B. I love that old school sound. I love a good groove, and you have, not to make too much of a pun, the melodic sounds, the melodies that come through in your music, are those really sensual, and I would call, they're sexy. There's some sexy vibes that kind of come through there, and some sexy sounds, but you've got that tone in your voice that's just so, it's just, it's like butter.
Thank you so much. I will say, at that early age that we spoke a little earlier ago, when she first saw me, I don't even remember what my voice sounded like. I honestly don't. I don't have any recordings. I don't know what the hell I sounded like before. But I can tell you that in high school, I actually went to a school called Cap Calloway School of the Arts. Yes, and it's in Wilmington, Delaware. Shout out to my school. I'm an alumni there. And I actually was classically trained there for 4 years. So I do owe a lot of that training and knowing to make sure that I take care of this instrument here while I was transitioning and things like that. I learned pretty much all of that there. And that was way before, years before I even knew that I was going to transition. So
if anyone's watching this and you don't know who Cab Calloway is, so I got goosebumps when you said that, because I mean, that is old time jazz and Motown, and that world is just, it's everything. So much of what we have today in music came out of artists that were from that era, and that is a great school to have in your backpack. So, and I didn't even know that. I wish I would have known that, but I'm glad, because I got the chills. That's a fantastic place to have come from, and to learn so much from a school like that. Well, it truly does then make me understand where you are and how you got here. The new album is called Paradigm, and it's EP. I get confused these days. I don't know whether to call things EPs or albums anymore. And then another artist said the EP is the new mixtape, and I was like, I was going to say the EP is the new album, but that's fine. But so the new project, we'll call it a project, is Paradigm. Yeah. And how long were you working on that for? And because before that, you also had the Phoenix album, right?
Yes, I did.
So, sorry.
No, you're fine. So I started working on Paradigm, I believe it was June. I could be wrong. My producer, don't be mad at me, but I believe it was June, beginning of June, maybe end of May. And I had just released the Phoenix that February. So this is just so people can understand the timeline. And I had some of my fans ask me like, oh my God, music, so soon, because they were waiting for visuals from the Phoenix. But honestly, that wasn't possible because then the pandemic, Miss Coronavirus hit us, I probably can't say coronavirus on here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know how they are sometimes. But yes, so I had to kind of, it was I had to part ways basically from that album. I wanted to move away from it because I felt like at that time it just had not a stigma, but it just felt like it was eons away. I honestly felt at that time that I released an album 2 years ago. I was like, what the heck? Like all this stuff is happening to all of us. We're going through all these changes. And here I was months later, and I hadn't even picked up the album or hit anybody up to shoot a video or do anything about it. So I just decided, I called up my producer, R-Dub, and I said, hey, you weren't on the last project, The Phoenix, I want to do a project with you. I think I want to do something that's special. I want to make it just a cohesive album where it kind of like the tracks go into each other. And I just want to express a few things. And I felt like the things that I was touching on Paradigm, I didn't, or maybe wasn't in the headspace to do so when I made The Phoenix. So it was 3 months, just to answer your question directly. It was 3 months that it took me to basically create Paradigm.
I'm often surprised that, and maybe I shouldn't be. I think maybe what is happening for me is because I'm coming into discovering and talking with so many artists that have such a fire to get their stories out and to get moving on things. I think that maybe because from our community, we've had to sit still for so long in different ways that once it's ready to get going, they don't want to waste time. So I'm always a little bit surprised about how quickly artists are turning things around, but at the same time, I'm thinking that's why, that we're so used to hearing the stories of artists who are out there. And it's like, this has been in the works for 2 years. And it's kind of like, oh my God, that was such a long journey. And then I'm talking to artists that were like, no, I had this just 3 months and this had to get turned around. And I was like, wow, people are really moving. But now that I think about it, it's because, yeah, we've had to wait on so many things that when we get opportunities, we don't want to wait.
No, definitely. I would say that's absolutely true. 100,000%. With the Phoenix too, the album that I had dropped before back in February, I will say that album did take me 2.5, 3 years. And that was usually my time frame in between, because before that album, I hadn't created an album since 2016. Yeah, so I was pretty much on par when the Phoenix was coming out, my timeframes that I usually would put out a body of work. And so I will tell you though, Paradigm wasn't rushed. And I say that not because I feel like, it seems, 3 months is such a short time, but only because it was very organic. When I went to the studio to create this album, it was an idea. It was a vision, so often reason why it takes me years when I'm creating project is because I'm recording songs throughout all those years. And then at the end, when it's like, okay, my manager's team's like, all right, it's crunch time. We got to release something. You know what I mean? Like to stay relevant, basically. That's really what it comes down to, just to be blunt. Then I'm having to take those records and make an album. But this one, I didn't record anything extra that I wasn't going to use. Everything that was created, everything that my producer R-Dub handed me, everything that we leased for, because there are a couple songs in there that he didn't particularly produce. There's like maybe 4, but he did everything else. And there's 15 tracks total. So we did a lot of work, and we were still actually finishing the album when I released the single Transition back in June. And I had scored an interview for that when it had came out. And from there, it just really was taking off and had a life of its own. So
yeah, I mean, it's fairly lengthy, and I think that's my surprise, right? But and I would never assume it was rushed, but I think that what it is that the vision and the understanding of what artists, and I think artists from the queer community really have a really very specific, and they know the direction that they kind of want to head in. And it's really great to be able to see that. Now, listening to the album, there's a lot of stories within stories through this album, and you have a lot to say. I love the fact that, you know, right out of the get-go, Transition is there, and Transition's a fantastic song. I will say that it is. It's a song that isn't so on the nose, but really gets the message across what you're singing about, and the message that you're bringing. But it's not like you didn't craft it in a way to kind of say, this is my journey, or anything like that. Right. It could be, you could listen to it and you could see yourself in it regardless who you are.
Right. No, that definitely was the goal. So when Arda, my producer, had sent me this instrumental, I fell in love. And I remember falling asleep to it that night, and I woke up and immediately started writing. And I knew, because he actually titled the beat Transition, I said, that is the name of the song. I'm not changing it. And even though I don't say transition in the song, not once, it worked, because it wasn't so much, like you said, it wasn't about the physicality of it, right? Where I'm like, okay, yeah, I changed this and I changed that. And it wasn't nothing like that. It was all about the feeling and what is the repercussion of those changes. So like, for instance, when I was writing it, my family was in mind, because I'm not very close with them due to me being transgender, or just even within the LGBTQ community, to be honest, because even before I transitioned, wasn't the best relationship. So it only became more strained when I began to transition 3 years ago. And so I wrote that song Transition with them in mind, saying that, all their lies, these are not my lies. All their stories that they tell people about me, those are not my stories. That's not my truth. And that's really how the song was birthed.
It's and yeah, as like I said, anybody could hear themselves in there, because it is about the transition of life. And it just fits so well, because I think that far too many times, maybe artists find themselves in a position where they feel like they have to be far too literal for the public or for an audience, and it's really not what they want to convey. And what you've done is you've taken, it's almost like a metaphor in a way, to be able to talk to anybody about life struggles, about the things we encounter, of the things that happen that you didn't expect to happen, and how you kind of pick it up and move forward. So as a kickoff to that song, after the first lead in, that first instrumental lead in, which I really enjoy. I mean, not everybody really gets the whole interludes within an album. I like it as a palate cleanser in a way. And I love how you've layered the album like that. So there's different ones throughout, and I think that's really nice. It kind of gives you almost chapters in a sense within an album.
Yes, I'm telling you, this album is very intentional, and that's why this one is so important to me. It's not just because it's the album that talks about the certain things that it talks about, but from a musical standpoint, just like you, as a lover of R&B and just music in general, this album really gives you a lot of things to digest and to handle. And with the instrumentals, just the feeling of the songs, like, even if you didn't know what the heck I was saying, just feeling what you feel when you hear the music. And then, yes, the interludes were meant to be like little chapter markers, like, okay, this is chapter 2, this is chapter 3. So I'm really happy you picked that up.
Yeah, no, I enjoy that, because I think that people, and I'm old school, right? Like I'm somebody who loves liner notes. I like to read where things were created and who produced it and who was on whatever, the session tracks and things like that. I'm an old school lover of music that way. So when an album is people think it's chopped up. It's not. It's layered. And it's like each section takes you through on the story. And I love how an album can tell a story. And I think, and not to rain on anybody out there who's younger and making music, some of the current music doesn't have that hand over fist as takes you through an album. It's more about, this is a good song, this is a good song, this is a good song, and that works for them, and that's fine. But for somebody like me, I love how you've layered it, because it really does. It carries me through, and you can sit it down in one setting and you can kind of listen to it and you can hear where you're going and where you arrive. And I just think R&B is such a great vehicle for that style of layering within albums.
Yeah. See, I love that you say that, but I got to tell you, okay, so the manager that I was talking about before, she made me aware of this. Right now we're just friends. She's not my manager now or anything, but because I've known her for so long, she's like my eldest friend. And she's really an integral part of my life, but she made me aware that this is not an easy journey, what I have decided to embark on. And especially because I do R&B music at my core. The R&B audience is used to a certain thing, and it's been like that for many, many, many years. Either a girl is talking about a boy or a boy is talking about a girl, and it's a love story, right? But the moment, and the assumption is, of course, that they're just normal heterosexual people. And while I can get away with that, it's important to me to really talk about my identity. And so then there lies all the obstacles that I'm having to go through that I'm not used to going through, to be quite honest, these past 3 years. And which is why I'm just so, I don't know if you heard this in our communications, I just have a spirit of gratitude, to be honest with you, because I'm very thankful. I've been afforded a lot of things before I transitioned, and I was at a pinnacle and I was about to pop. And then I had an epiphany, and what really popped was who I needed to be. And since then, my career, I have had to work harder than I've ever worked before, just to get a little bit of what I used to have. So I thank you.
And I think that it's really important for people. I don't think the general public, I don't even think the general community, not to slag anybody or anything like that, but even ourselves, I don't think we stop and take enough time and care and consideration and put thought into what does that look like for someone when they have to make such and it's not even a choice really for you to be the person you are. There are changes that you have to make. There are things that you have to go through. And I don't think we really take everything into consideration about how far reaching the repercussions of that are, and what the work that you have to do, that suddenly, because we don't have a world that makes it easy for everyone, that gives it the same, we don't make the same concessions, I guess, for everybody. And I don't think we take that into consideration enough, and I don't think we put enough emphasis on it.
No, definitely. I would 1000% agree. It's something that I had to learn. I had to I went through a depression because of it, the Phoenix of, I can just touch on that album one more time, and then we're just that album's deceased for right now, but the Phoenix is an angry album. I'm just going to say it. It is an angry album, and a lot of people actually liked it. And, they'll say, oh, because it was raw in emotion. But what they don't know is because at that time, I had lost my family. I lost not every, but most of the friends that I thought I would have for the rest of my life. They went away. I had to move. There was just a lot of things that were in transition besides just me going and taking this journey to finally become the person that I always was inside. And you're right. A lot of people don't know, don't see, can't even fathom what that may look like, because they don't know what's on the other side. So often we know what an outcome might be, or we've seen somebody do something and we're like, oh, okay, well, if we do this, this is what it might look like. But nobody knows that when you decide to change your outer appearance, regardless of anything else, how important and frivolous that is. But those same people that promise that they love you forever, they just don't care enough, you know? So it's difficult, but I always tell people it's necessary. Regardless of anything, it is difficult, but it's necessary.
I think any kind of life experience like that, it comes with two hands, right? One is the heavy hand and one's the hand of light. I sound very preachy and I don't mean to. You know, the heavy hand is all the baggage and everything that you have to carry on your back because nobody's going to do it for you. No matter if they want to or not, it is because it's your journey. And the hand of light is really where you're trying to get to, because you know when you get there, you drop so much of that baggage that you're carrying with you, around with you. And some of it's a tool to get you to the light, and some of it is just because you don't know how to shake it. And it's a journey. It's, you know, and one of the reasons, and I was going to ask you about Phoenix, because I was gonna say, Phoenix to me sounded like, I got something to say. I got to get this off my chest. This has got to get done. And then we're just going to be done, because there is a lot of raw emotion. And what maybe what other people think is angry sometimes, I was kind of picking up on as almost awakening, self-confidence, kind of like, no, I know now, I know these things. This is kind of, it was like almost a revelation in a way, which can come across with anger, because as you let go of things, the anger has to go somewhere. But I was going to ask you about that, because it really comes from a real specific point of view. It's punchy.
Yeah, I think it was a dark place. Yeah, I'm glad it showed, though, to be honest, just because if you think about the Phoenix and what that means and what it represents, it makes sense.
For sure it does. For sure it does. But but then you get here. And what I was going to say too about the kind of the chapters and how, and you're right, R&B is not necessarily where you find this kind of layering of an album. But who I will say, who I thought was doing it, and I thought was doing it good for the time, and was really, I think really understood it, was Janet Jackson on Reverbnation and her Janet album, even into the Velvet Rope. She was, in my opinion, carefully placing bits and pieces of her life that maybe people didn't even recognize or know about, but she was getting them in there and rolling them through. And it was very, very clever. And I feel that with this too.
No, definitely. You know, it's funny that you said that, because that is certainly one of the artists that I would put into, like, let's say, like the top 10 of artists of all time that actually understand the intricacy, that actually use their voice as an instrument. And, you know, we all know, and she knows this, she doesn't have the most, you know, the most range. So it's, some people can say it's not the best voice, but it is her unique tone, and her style has always been to layer her vocals, to stack her vocals in the studio, and it sounds like one massive choir. And I've always admired that. I would say like her, Mariah Carey, you know, Whitney never really did it, which, you know, but she's the voice, so it's like, it doesn't even matter. But and all right, rest her soul, one of my favorite artists. And then I would say the one who does it a lot in R&B is Brandy. Brandy is the queen. She is the vocal Bible of stacking her vocals, and just like, it's crazy to me.
It's interesting that you mentioned Brandy, because every now and then I have these Brandy moments, especially if I catch anything that's even reminiscent of sitting up in my room. And I think Brandy is an artist that people somehow forgot about. But the voice and what she was able to do, especially because she had that almost gravelly, like that lower tone where it could sound so raw for her, but still so pretty.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And then she could still flutter up top a bit.
Yeah.
She's still, you know what I mean? Like she wasn't a mezzo soprano or anything like that, but she can get up there with the best of them. I actually have been following her career even still to this day. She just released an album called B7.
Yeah.
can't remember when the heck it was released, but it was, I think, sometime this year. And I mean, she still has it. It's amazing to me, no matter how old she gets, the way that she conducts herself in the studio and what she can actually take. I mean, any beat, any instrumental that anybody gives her, I just admire the way that she comes at it, you know, with her voice, and it truly is her instrument.
Her vocal tone is ridiculous.
And the vocal tone, yeah, that, I mean, it's magic.
Ridiculous. It's crazy.
Right.
Debra Cox from Canada is a little bit like that. She's the vocal tone is just is sublime.
She did the Whitney documentary, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, you just named like one of the her voice is everything.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with R&B that I love, and I think that sometimes people get a little bit confused. There's some rougher R&B that's out there now, and that I'm thinking of that classic R&B, and it's not necessarily about song structure or whatnot. It's a feeling. It's a whole feeling. It's a whole and you know it when you hear it, and I'm starting to hear it come through I'm hearing it more in our queer community than I'm hearing it in just the mainstream music. The mainstream music wants to ram it full of just synth and electro and whatnot, and I'm like, you need a good bass line in this song, and I can hear it sometimes. And again, I won't fault anyone, but I'm hearing it more in the queer community because I think that they're taking I don't know if they're taking the time or they're getting into the history of music, but I'm starting to hear like some of these young guys that are coming out, and I'm like, oh, it's like there is some excitement that's in the R&B world coming from the queer community, and I find it incredible.
You gotta let me know. I'm gonna have to keep watching everything. It's so weird because obviously I'm new to promoting my music to our community. I don't really know, anybody in it that is in the community that does music and does it well. So it would be very I'm gonna have to watch what you post and more closely. And
I'm always on the hunt. We're flooded, and I mean the industry's like this, and I think it's so backwards. Artists should be driving the direction of the industry, but it's not artists all the time who are doing that. It's executives, it's management, it's A&R and publicity and promo, who are picking up on what other people are picking up on. But really, music is so fluid. The artists should be setting the tone. And really, they're kind of plucked out of that situation a lot, which is it's unfair and it's ridiculous in my opinion, but whatever. Who am I? But I think that when you start to kind of watch what's happening, we have a flood that's based off of maybe what mainstream radio is promoting or pushing. So then we have a lot of young artists that think, well, that's the way to go with music, and that's what I should be making. But then you have, and this is where maybe training and experience kind of comes into play, because what I'm finding is artists like yourself who have a background in it, who've gone to school, and that doesn't necessarily have to make or break anything, but they have a different viewpoint on it. So instrumentation becomes a huge part of the process. And there's an understanding there that I think helps elevate some of the music that comes through, and you can kind of cut through some of the noise of what's being thrown at you maybe.
No, absolutely. I mean, my producer that is, featured on this album, RDub, he's not in our community, but he specializes in bass. I mean, that is his instrument. He plays the drums and a couple other things too. But I mean, if people really take the time to hear that this is not an 808 you're hearing on this album. I don't think I have an 808 on this album at all. Every single song, if I'm not mistaken, if there's a bass, it is from an actual bass guitar, and that is instrumentation done by my producer himself. And you're right. I mean, it does help though when you do have a background, or at least I would say maybe not a schooling, right? But maybe like just an appreciation for the old R&B and like you have, you know, and how it used to be. That's when then you can appreciate certain things when you hear it, you know, and you know what to look for too. You know, that's the other part of it. It's like some people don't know because they've never heard the music before. They haven't given it a chance. But when you do give it a chance, and you know, then they'll love it. Because who cannot? You're right. It's a feeling. Who cannot love that? You know, the good feeling. But like you said, I feel this way too. It's like, but who am I, right?
It's only my opinion, and I'm like,
Right.
I'm not an artist. I'm a lover, and I'm an eater of music, and I eat R&B, and I love soul, and I love Motown, and the Motown soul R&B mixture is fire. It's just, you know, but I also love alt rock, and I love techno, and I like dance music. I love a good Euro dance and a good thump. But I think what it is appreciation for. I'm also a live music junkie, so for me, you know, your vocals on a stage with a band and both electric and an upright bass is kind of like, woo! I get, you know, that's chills for me.
It's
right?
coming. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I think that's
coming.
It's because, you know, raised on live music, because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have access to things. You got used to, and it became part of you, and it became part of the story and the feeling of the music. And I'm, you know, I mean, oh God, a good bass line is just, it's everything. It's heaven, right?
I agree. It really is. I mean, making this album was so much fun because I got to hear, you know, the intricacies of everything. And sometimes, like when we would rework a song, for instance, and you know, we'd be in the studio together, I could literally just see everything be created or reconstructed, and it just always blew my mind because I don't play an instrument. But I have an instrument, as we all know. So, but it's a different thing when you play. I really admire people that play. And the reason why, by the way, I don't play is because I have never mastered. I tried. I never could master playing and singing. And so for me, it just was something that I can't do. I can't walk on 2 bubblegum. I'm sorry. But I'm actually constructing currently a live band. And so far I have a drummist, and I have a pianist, and I do have a guitar man, but he's in New York. So I got to figure something out, but I'm trying to construct something here because that is really where I shine, to be honest with you. Live is where it's at for me. I love it.
I would believe it. And like I said, just from the sound of the album, I envision it live. I envision like when listening to the album, I could imagine you in a live recording studio where everybody's in the studio together, and it's just kind of like a live take, and you know, everybody's in the room. And you know, if we're fortunate to be in spaces that have great production studios where you know, a one room setup where everybody is in there, and it just becomes you know, a moment that you capture, that you can slam down and record. It's, from somebody who's watched it happen, I've always been envious of not being able to be part of it, but also at the same time, I pay attention because I want to know. I'm you know, watching what's happening in that. And you're a part of it in a way because it's just you know, the understanding of it and the respect of what's being created. I get
chills, right?
I go off.
Go off. Go ahead.
All right. Well, okay, so we have this album out, and it's a big piece. So to move with this, and it just came out, so we're not asking you to move off of it anytime soon. But what's your plan with this album, kind of moving forward?
Yeah. So the next single off the album that I am going to come out with is called Passion. And that is one of the up-tempo tracks on the album that has a kind of like a Latin flair to it. And we're going to be shooting a music video for it. And that'll be like the first visual that really people will get to see on a, you know, on a major scale. And it's going to be literally being played on VH1 and MTV and all that. And that's just through a connection that I have. So, you know, I'm blessed in many ways. I just have to do the work. As I was stating earlier, it's just, it's more, I'm playing a lot of different roles. I have a lot of different hats on than what I used to have. But it's okay. It's taught me a lot. But yeah, so Passion, music video coming out for that. I'm also constructing the band. So we're doing rehearsals even with the pieces that we have currently, just so that we can get everything rolling. And then using some footage from that as promotion, and just trying to really, really just get me out to our community, to be honest, which again has been something that I really feel strongly about. If I just wanted to go the route and just trust me, I could have done it. If I just wanted to, you know, not acknowledge who I was, I could have done that. But there's something in my spirit that just won't allow me to, you know, everything that I've been through, I have to be here for us.
You're a whole human, and I don't think that there's, well, I shouldn't say there's not a person, because we know that
Yeah.
people can be people, but I don't think that there's any way anyone should ever expect someone to go through life without being their whole self. I don't think anyone would ever want to go through it. So why should anyone ever be denied going through that, or be, you know, not supported to be their full self?
Yeah.
And the magic, and I'm excited for you to, you know, COVID being what it is in our land of pandemia, we don't know what's going to happen. You're in the United States and you have an election in days. You know, this world is kind of crazy, but if I can be excited for you for one thing, it's at that moment when, even if it's small shows, and being able to play live and getting out there and setting foot on stage with your crew, and in diva form like you will be, I'm so excited for that for you, because I think that kind of moment is going to be where it's kind of like, oh hell yes, get out of my way.
I would not do myself a favor or a service if I did not also say, though, the third and final thing, well, really two more things. The other thing with this album is it's actually being re-released. So right now we are currently working on, it's doing really well. So I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I've reached a lot of places around the world. And I am very, very thankful. You know, I wish I could see what those fans, you know, where they are, you know, and who they are. I see where they are, but who they are, and just reach out and thank them so much. So thank y'all. But yeah, we're going to actually do a deluxe version. So that'll come out. I'm trying to shoot for January or February of next year. But we are currently working on the deluxe version. And it's actually not just like you see artists put out a deluxe and it's like, here's your album plus the 5 or 4 new tracks. No. I'm restructuring the entire album paradigm. And the new tracks, which is going to be about 7 of them, are going to be sprinkled into the album. So it's going to be like 22, 23 tracks after it's all said and done. And I'm going to be re-recording some songs on there. And I'm just going to be doing a lot of work because there were some things that people said were missing. They wanted more dance music. So that is what I'm going to give them.
Well, you have the voice for it, right? But that's again, that's the range I think that you have. Some of those growly, more, you know, like in the floor kind of songs that bring you know, your lower, to work your lower register a bit and kind of get down there into the groove. Like I said, they're like butter, right? Like just velvety. But when you go up and you go up into those higher notes and into more of the up-tempo songs, right? You sizzle. There's like a shine and sizzle. There's a whole like counter space of I don't know where I'm going with all the sizzling metaphors, but
it's okay.
There's like a fire, right? And you can feel it, you can hear it, and it's so to have more of that, yes, please.
And then finally, the one thing that is happening currently is I am getting back into writing music to be placed on projects, you know, whether it's for television, video games, movies, I mean, you name it. So currently I actually just recently signed with this company, Push Audio, and I am working with them exclusively so that we can get some things placed and just add that to, you know, ways to just make sure that this starving artist over here is doing all she can to really just use my gift and touch as many people.
You know, if they ever made, and I thought about this when I first listened to the album, if they ever redid, back in the 80s, we had the Kids from Fame, the TV show that was based off the movie. If they ever did that, like, that's a show, like, that's a vehicle I could totally see you on, like, with your music and your style. It's like you would be in there, you'd be like the new Debbie Allen, kind of just in there, like that vocal trainer.
I would love that. Yes. You know, COVID needs to go away, period, because I miss being on stage. I used to do a lot of stage productions and just be in that world and really flex the acting muscle, and, you know, because that's in me as well. And I've done it. I've been in Rent like 5,000 times. And I've done things here and there, but I'm ready to kind of elevate that part too. So I'm hoping, if it's not in 2021, maybe 2022, where, you know, when everything's reestablished and fully operational, I'll be able to dive back in.
It's COVID has done two things, probably more than two things, but really with music, what it's done is it's allowed these independent artists like yourself who have had to fight and who have had to struggle to be able to excel a little bit, because they've known what that struggle and that fight's been like. And a lot of the artists that haven't had to go through that type of struggle, and a lot of the companies, a lot of the industry are scrambling. They don't know what to do with themselves because they've never had to think. They've always had their vehicles for themselves and they've always had access. So many of these artists like yourself had not had access, but you've been able to make it work. So that's one thing that has been good, because I see the independent artist has kind of almost risen to a point where it's kind of like clarity has come into play for a lot of folks, where it's kind of like, you know what? Yeah, you've got money, but I don't need your BS, because I know I can do this and I know I can kind of get through it. The other thing that it's done is I hope, fingers crossed, it has, I think, started to make people recognize that there is a real broken mechanism within music in terms of who gets heard, who doesn't get heard. And because of these festivals not being able to put on, like, the money that's being lost, if they had have been able to shift gears, if they had not have been so maybe tunnel visioned into what their world and how things roll out was, maybe they would have been able to, you know, jump on things a little bit faster, whatnot. So I'm hoping that the dynamic changes a bit because of this. I'm hoping that more appreciation of live music comes back. I'm hoping that more appreciation of broad-based genre and genre crossing and blending comes back, and that, you know, the artists that we're hearing, we go from like the 0.01% to maybe even a 2%. That would be even,
oh yeah,
hands and fists above face.
Right. Wow, that'd be amazing. It'll happen. I think if we just continue doing what we're doing, we've already, like you said, we have the groundwork already laid. You know, all the time that we were looked over, we still fought to have our seat. We still fought to do the things that we love to do each and every day. So now you're right, it's bubbling, because it's almost like a oppression of some sort, you know? And when that happens, as you know, pressure creates the diamonds, and we're going to burst. And it truly is, I think, going to be a beautiful thing. I don't know if it'll happen next year, but I think if we continue, I think by 2022, 23, I think we're going to see a lot of people start popping, you know, a lot of things start to come into play, more opportunities. I really do believe that.
I think that, you know, people always say, oh my God, I just want to get to the top of the hill. But once you get to the top of the hill, then it's going back down the other side.
Right.
So long as there's always a climb, but it's a climb that can be achieved,
Yeah.
that's forward motion, that's forward momentum. And I think that in industries like this, where money and power play such pieces and roles, there's always going to be a climb. But I think if we can get music at the front of the climb,
yeah,
all music from all people, I'm like, don't be afraid to broaden your,
yeah.
you know.
It's like, who cares what someone does? And you know, it's don't get me started, okay? Because
Even international music, right? Like when you think about,
yes,
like, you're infusing, you know, some Latin flavor, and you know, Tafari Anthony in Canada was just talking about his song the other day, his most recent release, where he's kind of getting into some Afro jazz, into pop, and bringing in some of that cultural heritage. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's gold.
it is.
People don't get that regularly. So the more that we can kind of, you know, bring into the scope of people's understanding of music, I think more better off they are for being music lovers, but they become more educated, I guess, too.
No, definitely. I agree.
Listen, this is, oh God, I feel like if I could talk for days, and just by myself, I could talk for days, but when I have somebody I can actually converse with, I can just keep going. But this is, I'm so excited that to watch everything that happens and see everything that happens and get you involved in things, and to connect you with some of those R&B folks, or at least pass them along to you so that you can kind of take a listen to it, see if it's somebody that you'd want to connect with.
Yeah.
There's so many out there.
No, definitely. I am so appreciative, Kenny. You don't even know. I could tell you to the cows come home, but you still wouldn't believe or know the magnitude. So thank you. This is again something that I have been wanting for 3 years. So, and you gave it to me. So thank you.
I'm so glad to be, it's, and like I said, when we were talking earlier, that, you know, you were the first artist I came across when I started getting submissions from the Reverbnation partnership and project.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that was going to look like. And you were one of the very first ones. And I was like, if I only have to do one, I was like, I found my one. And I was just like, I could just stop here. But then folks started kind of coming through, but I was just like, this is the perfect moment, the perfect person to be able to, you know, introduce. And I'm like, everything that I heard, I was kind of like, this is so me.
Oh, no, I am so thankful. This is also going to help, I think, a lot of people, this conversation, which is always something that I am extra appreciative of, because I even before we started today, I wrote a status, basically just having people know that I'm doing something that I think is going to really help people, and that they send, you know, positive prayers and vibes and just all that jazz to us, because this conversation is needed in more corners than we know, you know. And you just never know who we're going to touch. So thank you for even allowing that to happen today.
Well, you're quite welcome. And I think you're right that this conversation does need to happen more often. And I think that no matter how many people say it has to happen, what we have to do is provide the space. That is the difference. You can say it all you want to. If you don't put it into action and give people space to be able to be heard, then it's just lip service. So if you're watching out there and you have a way to give people space to be able to be heard, take the time to listen and to give them that room. It's vital, especially for people who need to hear the stories and hear the messages.
Amen. Amen. And with that said, I just want to say to everybody, if you need some feel-good music, okay, please go listen to Paradigm. And I say please very, you know, very calmly, nicely, but I really just want to be like, go check my album out. But no, definitely check it out. Paradigm is available everywhere on all your favorite platforms, all your favorite apps. And I just think it's something that will truly, truly bless and touch you guys and help lift you out of this funk that a lot of us are, going through, especially during these times. So I hope you love it as much as I did creating it.
And follow Melodic on social media for everything. You are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I believe it's all at Melodic Music.
Melodic's World. So
Melodic's World.
Yeah, Melodic's World for Instagram. I believe Facebook as well. Melodic08 for Twitter. But honestly, if you just find me on Instagram, you'll find links to everything else.
And we're going to link it in the YouTube video and that kind of thing as well as we put it out. So you'll be able to easily find it. So if you're in here and you say, oh, do I have to write that down? Realize, no, when you press stop and you go back out, it's going to be right there. Don't stress.
Love it.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to talk more. And as more singles come out and that video comes out, I can't wait to talk more and just showcase you to the world.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Thank you. Take care.